I loved reading your comments on the last 2 Hannah videos, and it's her situation is tragic, sincerely. And there was a comment that just came in not too long ago, and I'm actually decided to, before I return to my Matrix duties, that I wanted to talk about it. By the way, all of you, for the most part, and whoever isn't watching this probably is not part of the group that I'm saying, but all of your comments, the majority of you, super conscious, respectful. You put yourself outside of your own world experience to look at something from someone else's perspective, right? Or like you're seeking truth, right? Digging in, or feeling, or just, rational reasoning. And I really appreciated, I love it. I love every single comment. So if you are thinking of something, whatever, like just comment. I love reading your comments. So Soda Pop Curtis 808 said, "This smells of human trafficking," and I agree. 100% it really does. "I think the Matrix and Underworld is referring to something mundane, like organized crime. Sounds to me like this woman was using her spiritualist language to ask for help." And yeah, I agree with that in a way, right? And that's what I wrote, because I don't know how many of you are going to stay with me. Stay with me. If you don't understand, comment, right? Like, I want to talk here. I want to have conversation. Like, I don't like these channels that are just like one perspective. They're very focused on their niche, but like we're all confluence of all of these experiences, right? And so my channel, I really want respectful engagement, right? And we're going to have people here and there, who aren't that way, but that's okay. Like, that's the world, right? I kind of agree with you, but I want to ask you this. What is mundane? I know what the definition of mundane is, right? And then what is spiritual? So isn't our everyday life like just a reflection of, number one, ourselves, and then also a spiritual aspect or perspective of the same thing? Right? And what is organized crime? Let me ask you that question. I mean, let's ask everybody, right? What is organized crime? Is it the mafia? Is it cartels? Is it the Roman Catholic Church? Is it Twin Flame Universe? Could it be X? like everything could be an organized crime, because it depends upon how we define all these things, right? And then all of these things are like the physical embodiment of like a spiritualized perspective, if that makes sense. So I want to say it this way. I'm totally going from Hannah right now. Okay. So I hope you guys follow maybe this podcast will be called Non-Linear ADHD Chat, because this is me. So what is a sacrifice, right? So we can think about sacrifices of time, money, things like that. Or like the more spiritual sacrifice, unaliving something, one, in order to basically harvest the energy in its purest form, and, to take action and live out that energy, right? And oftentimes that sacrifice occurs because the person doing it doesn't have or can't create that energy within themselves, right? Which is why it's dark and gross and icky, right? And evil. But sacrifice could also be, if we look at Diddy or any like sex trafficking ring, it's really energy harvesting, right? And it's really, when I look at these child trafficking rings, I'm just seeing like a lot of energy harvesting. And that's why the wealthy do it, right? Because they're taking the most pure and vulnerable people in our society, disempowering them and literally taking away any possibility of them living a completely, not that anyone has a normal life, but of any chance that they had of being a reasonably healthy and integrated person without a lot of work, right? i.e. traumatizing that person. So in that way, we have this energy harvesting happening, right? So in our justice system, in the news, we say S trafficking ring, right? But when I see it, my perspective is that there is like a power dynamic going on, and also like this harvesting of energy. Some people will think that it's have like intense like sexual satisfaction from like overpowering and dominating somebody, or it's the thrill of doing something that is forbidden or taboo, and whatever it is that they do, right? That all can be true, but that comes from this element of taking power away from someone, right? So in Hannah's case, I'm not saying that's what's happening to her. I would never make that implication or speculation on an active missing person's case. What I want to do is just throw some things out there to make people think, right? Like, oh, maybe it isn't like either she ran away or somebody like, got her with it. Maybe she was manipulated. Maybe there's some sort of coercive control going on, either by one person or a group. Once a manipulator, whether it's an institution or whatever, gets its hooks in you, like, isn't that kind of like an organized crime, right? So in organized crime, like if we're talking like RICO statutes and things like that, okay, that's different, right? Because there's a legalistic language around it. So for Hannah, was she talking about the more mundane? I think so. I do. But is that so different than this more spiritual concept of the Matrix, like a fabricated reality? Is it so different? No, because it's constructed, right? Both are constructed with a purpose and an end to manipulate vulnerable people for some sort of gain, right? As most things are. And what's a crime? In the physical world, there are legal crimes. In the spiritual world, there are spiritual crimes, right? The underworld has to deal with things that are unseen. Spirits. This could also be psychological drives. How many times have you heard a spiritual person say they're like, the demons are like soul jumping, right? Like body jumping, where they can go from person to person to person. And then like this demon keeps like jumping into the souls of every person I date. No, you need to do some healing, because you keep attracting abusers, right? Because you're carrying the same sort of energy. So the underworld could also be our psyche, is it not? Right? Things that are unseen, demons, evil spirits, things like this, or good spirits, because the underworld is not necessarily bad or evil. It's just the things that we can't see, right? Things that are hidden yet totally active here in our reality. We just don't see them. So again, coercive control, manipulation, things like this. Yeah, like I think you're right. And I think that she could be using spiritual language to ask for help. But I mean, oftentimes the thing with Hannah is that none of her friends, and one of her family members said that she had hundreds of friends. None of her friends had any red flags about this, or so they're saying, right? But what else is that indicative of? A narcissistic, abusive relationship, right? Where they want to isolate the person. And what better way to get off, right? If you're a narcissist. Now you have all these people on the news, like, wanting this girl, like, that's great. Like, that's like, he's getting energy for years, or she. Because let's not forget, like Teal Swan. Who knows? We often think of, a kidnapper as somebody who is physically taking somebody. It's just like in domestic violence cases. If you, like so many cases that I've watched, especially Ashley Benefield, because she wasn't physically beaten, with that prosecutor, even though she was doing her job, that she kept leading with that wasn't actually abuse. Okay, yeah, so he pushed you. Yeah, okay, so he said these things. He held the gun up at you, but he didn't shoot you. He threw it at you, but it didn't go off. He punched the dog in front of you. Yeah, every time you talked about somebody else other than him, he went crazy. Anyway, I'm probably going to cut that out. But you see my point? Like, what is mundane is spiritual. And I don't know, so many people probably clicked off already. But especially now, and if you know astrology, even just a little bit, because I'm not an astrologer at all, but we have a lot of changes happening right now, right? And with these changes, up there, there's going to be a lot of changes down here. We are already seeing it. I don't know how many of you feel different right now. Let's say in the last week. You're going to start to feel a lot different. There's going to be a lot of role reversals, tables turning, karma. But it's a new time. What is that song? It's a new day, it's a new life. Like, that's what I want to say. I don't know. But do you know what I'm saying? There's no difference. There's no difference because really they all come from the same place. One is just a physical manifestation of the other, right? What's a spiritual crime versus a legal crime? And then because like what's a crime in the US versus a crime in England, in Uganda and Pakistan. They're all different, right? It's what we've related to. It's our perspective and our spirituality, right? So I think that there was, and oftentimes when you are being manipulated or coerced by somebody who is highly abusive and controlling, there's that gaslighting that happens. And once that split starts to happen where you begin to dissociate and you're unable to really tell like whose reality is real, theirs or yours, with this gaslighting because you've been highly traumatized and psychologically brainwashed and abused, there's even less like delineation or line between, what is physical and what is spiritual. There is no separation. And just like what we see physically is when we are trying to heal our minds to get along in our society, it is spiritual, whether we look at it from a spiritual perspective or from a psychological perspective. And the last thing I'll leave you with is as a Reiki healer, I heard it, but I didn't understand it until I started taking clients that the mental health system in our country is lacking so severely that people are turning to spiritualists. And this is why people run into churches and religions where they can be manipulated and coerced, being so vulnerable and just seeking help so badly because there's a mental health crisis. There has been for a long time. There probably always has been. And we're still in it. And it's just changing each time. It's just, our babies are taking guns to schools because not only have we not solved our mental health crisis in this country, but we're applying more pressure to them, to the babies in school. Oh, and they're babies, they're kids, so no wonder, like it's tragic and sad, but it's because we are not doing what we're supposed to be doing here, collectively and taking care of each other, All right, so I want to hear what you guys have to say. You heard what I have to say, and I didn't think about this too much more than I had like previously, and it was just like chit-chatting and talking to you guys. And, you know, I'm very non-linear and I make kind of connections, but it's grounded in reality. And, you know, I'm open. I'm not delusional in the fact that I think that this is my way, the highway, the only way. And if you're not here, then get out. No, I want to hear what you have to say, right? And the only thing I'm going to say and request, really, the only thing I'm going to request from you, all of you, any of you at any time, is to just be respectful of each other, you know? And if you start disparaging me, I'll just block you, and that's cool. We'll just keep moving on. It's surrounding Hannah. It's tragic. But I do feel like the more positive energy that we put into any aspect of her story will draw her out. I'm going to stop talking now because I'll talk forever. I love you guys. Tomorrow I am posting what we know up until now for Hannah. Another little fun treat that I might record tonight. We'll see. God bless. I love you guys and happy Thanksgiving.